How do you address homosexuality with kids? You tell them she loves her, she married her. I love her, I married her. She loves me, she married me. It's as simple as that. People make it too complex. When you are worried about how your kids are going to perceive these things, it's because you have the issue, not because your kids have the issue. And I'm going to tell you that to your face. You have the issue. Style is how your mind perceives reality.
Wow.
Blew my mind.
Whoa.
Blew my mind.
Wow.
I'm Puerto Rican. Puerto Ricans have been in New York for a long time. I don't see one book about us.
Javier, welcome to the show. You are a self-published illustrator and the author and creator of the book series A Reason to Smile, a children's comic series about Luisa, an imaginative Puerto Rican girl from the big city who loves to people watch and go on adventures with her friends. I'm so curious about this series because it looks like a purely innocent children's series from the outside, but in one of your illustrations, we can see Luisa fighting the chupacabra. So there's definitely like a lot going on under the surface that I'd love to know more about. But before we get into the origin stories of Luisa and the world that she's living in, I want to know your origin story as an artist. When did you decide to pursue your creative passion, and what's your journey been like so far as an illustrator and an author?
So thank you for having me on the show, Veneer. This is a great opportunity to talk about the series, and um, I hope you guys get enough out of this information as I can give you. Um, my personal story is I was fortunate to be, in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. There's the Boys Club of New York, and they had an opportunity for some of the members of the Boys Club to be in a summer camp. And during the mornings, we'd have academics in the summertime, but then in the afternoon, we'd have our athletics. So during one of our lessons in the morning, one of the teachers says, this is my job. I love it. I do this all the time, and it doesn't feel like work. When you get older, you want to find a job that doesn't feel like work, something that you love so much that way every day that you go, you're excited to be there, you want to do it, and it doesn't feel like work. And I said, I love to draw. I'm going to be an artist. And ever since then, I had a piece of paper and a pencil, a piece of paper and a pen, and I was always drawing. Before that, I was always drawing as well, but it was just for fun. I would watch the cartoons that we all watch, and I would draw the cartoons and make up my own little stories. But at that point was when I realized this is what I want to do for a profession. This is like everyone always says, what do you want to be when you grow up? I realized I wanted to be an artist. So family functions, movie theaters, wherever I could hold something and I could draw, I was drawing. I even went to other summer schools just to get better as an artist. I was never an academic in any academic problems, but I was like, I want to get better as an artist, and the schools that I'm at aren't providing what I need, so I need extra work. So I would advocate for that. Went to college, got my BA in studio art, was fighting the whole time with the administration about, their what they wanted me to do versus what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I was fortunate enough to be skilled enough to win awards. So that was where a lot of the fighting even intensified, because they were like, well, we want you to do what you did there. But I didn't know what I did there. I'm a college kid. I need to be taught. So that was another part of the, process of trying to figure out what is it that I do well that other people like. I know I like to do certain things, but I don't know what it is that you like that I do unless you teach me that, unless you explain that to me. So I've always been big on communication, but since I didn't have that communication, I still struggled.
Mm-hmm.
So went to the Savannah College of Art and Design, tried to get in as in their graduate program. I was a provisional grad student. Got torn apart on my first portfolio review. But they say that they do that to everybody so that way you come back stronger. If you're not already meeting the standards that they set, they do that to everybody so that way you can come back with a force. Either you're going to come back and be stronger, or you're going to go, it's not for you type of thing. Fine. So I went back, got my, the last 3 classes, went back for my portfolio review. They told me they didn't have any more slots for a portfolio review.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like, all right, well, I guess I'm not paying another $20,000 to go through this again. So left there, and found DeviantArt.
Hmm.
Yeah, man. DeviantArt was my saving grace because after all of that, all of those things were great in terms of, being able to have some place to learn, something to bring into my palette that I didn't have before. Um, but I was able to utilize all of that stuff on DeviantArt and show it to a much wider audience than I had ever had before, to then get feedback and say, okay, well, this doesn't work. Like I remember posting my first Naruto drawing, not knowing Naruto, but posting it. They were like, oh, his eyes are too big, his head is too big, or his expression isn't right. And at the time, I didn't really understand it because I was just being given feedback, but not how to fix it. So
Mm.
I started having to try to digest on my own. How do I get this right? Well, if his eyes are too big, what do his eyes really look like?
Yeah.
If his expression is not right, what is his, then I have to delve into the character more. I have to take more time into the character. So I guess by that time I was finally able to understand whatever criticism I was receiving,
Hmm.
that didn't have any explanation. And then there were other people that would then say, okay, well, this is why this doesn't work. And then they would give me a breakdown of why it didn't work. I don't think I was a good artist until if I look back, until I was like maybe 30. 30 was when I hit my stride. But before that, I was trying to be an artist. I was trying to utilize my skills. I was trying to build them. And I just didn't know what to do because a lot of times I would be given information, but not how to apply the information, which is really key. When you're a teacher trying to, and I know this, especially now as a teacher myself, to give information is one thing, but to be able to understand and digest that information is completely different. So as a teacher, that I feel is the biggest part of what makes you a good teacher. So
Mm.
that's why I say DeviantArt was my saving grace, because I was able to take all of those experiences and then be able to grow and build and become the artist that I wanted to be. And funny enough, the introduction of the Wacom tablet changed things too, because I was doing everything with the mouse, trying to do
Oh
Photoshop.
gosh.
Yeah, you know what it is. So like trying to do all that with a mouse, that's what we did. We didn't have any other tools. And then in 2003, maybe 2004, I got the Wacom tablet. And I was like, oh, I could draw on the screen. I started treating it like a video game. The hand-eye coordination thing. It's like, whoa, wait a second, I'm touching here and it's over there. Oh, okay. Trying to get that together. And I went off. I was doing like an illustration a week. And yeah, man, I was a demon with it. I just love to draw. I love to create. So having that option allowed for me to do that. And then I had a place to display it and get feedback. Oh, this one didn't get as much engagement. Why not? That one got more engagement. Why? And trying to, adjust for that. And then I learned that you could do the Comic Con scene, that you didn't have to be a seasoned vet working at Marvel or DC to be at a Comic Con. I
Hmm.
said, oh, word? I could sell my artwork here? Okay.
Wow.
So I remember Big Apple Con 2008. I was working, I had worked at Kinko's. So I still had some connections there, and I ended up printing like 100 copies of like 5 drawings. I was like, oh, I'm gonna sell these for like $5, $10 each. Everyone's gonna want these. You get the loftiness and whatnot. And I sold a few. I sold a few, but I ended up having way too much, and I was like, okay, this is a learning experience. But it was cool because people saw me, and I actually got commissions like the first time I went to a convention. I
Wow.
didn't I didn't charge a lot. I charged maybe like $20, $30 for
Hmm.
something, for like full body pencil sketch, and people wanted it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this again. And every time I went, I learned something new, introduced myself to other people. They introduced themselves to me, started building a network, started making friends. Um, and now here I am. That was 2008, so 13 years later, um, a very different person, a very different person than I was then. So yeah, there's a lot of story in that. Starting with my first trip outside of New York City, taking a flight with my artwork, driving to another state, trying to do all that on my own, figuring it all out as a 20-year-old. Was it 2008? I had just hit 30, so that was like when I first started. That was my biggest adult experience at the time, of course, and it was like, okay, this is something I can do. And I'm very proud of being able to step outside of my comfort zone and making that venture, because I'm like I said, a very different place and a very different person because of it.
Wow. That's awesome. And I love how, that story of um, initially trying to send in that portfolio and you're like, okay, well, this isn't working. And then you find DeviantArt and it's sort of this discovery of the power of like community feedback and being able to just put yourself out there unfiltered and to just learn from that process, which is super powerful. But I actually want to go ahead and focus in on the topic now of comic books. And I want to talk about
Sure.
representation in comic books because you created Louisa for a reason. You wanted
Yeah.
her to look that way and to have that background because you understood that it was important for her story.
For
Prior to
sure.
her comic, her personality, her these adventures and this universe of stories did not exist. And oftentimes artists, they create new stories and worlds because those stories didn't exist before in their childhood, or now they want to be able to create that opportunity for that next generation. So when it comes to A Reason to Smile, your series, how do the comic books that you grew up with and the media and the stuff that you grew up with, how does that bleed into the influence of A Reason to Smile and Louisa?
So I wasn't brought up in a political household or even a household that was very much about culture. It was just about, surviving day to day. You got to do X, Y, and Z to be successful. This is where we're going to go. This is the direction that we're going to be in. So I said, okay, you live your life that way and you don't really see those experiences and understand what those mean when they present themselves. And then one of my best friends, who I call my brother, he got really into like the politics and the issues that Puerto Rican people deal with from the island and the diaspora. And he put me on to my culture. He helped me to really understand what it was to, you know, live on the island in Puerto Rico, to live here, what he had to go through, what others go through, and it started opening my eyes to seeing a life that I wasn't living myself, but was surrounded by and wasn't really aware of it. So as I continued to, be an artist, different jobs took me different directions, and I ended up as a art teacher in an after school program that then took me into being a teacher assistant in a charter school.
Hmm.
So that was a really great experience because then I got to see all these different kids, different backgrounds, different experiences, all learning the same things. Um, but what I realized at one point, I remember I was in the classroom and I was looking around because I had just saw a book about a specific culture that was underrepresented as well,
Mm-hmm.
but was kind of newer to America. And I'm thinking, I'm Puerto Rican. Puerto Ricans have been in New York for a long time. I don't see one book about us. How are we one of the oldest groups of quote unquote immigrants, even though we're citizens, we're still basically immigrants. Um, how are we in this country for so long and we don't have a plethora of books about us? That's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had these feelings before, but it wasn't in a school setting. It's very different when it's the foundation of your life that doesn't represent what your life should be. You know what I mean? I'm sure you've never read a book about Puerto Ricans in your school.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
You know what I'm saying? I haven't. Audience, have you? No, I don't think so. And if you have, you're fortunate. But as a Puerto Rican, as a New Yorker, there should be a bunch of stories about us that help to show you what New York is like, what um, the makeup of New York City is like. There should be a bunch of books about Jewish people. There should be a bunch of people about Puerto Ricans, a bunch of people about Chinese books about Chinese people, a bunch of books about Africans and African Americans, because it's not just African Americans that were here. African immigrants came over too. The
Mm-hmm.
Bronx is full of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So there should be books about all the immigrants that have come to this city, especially, and then, of course, the rest of the country. So these kids can learn this is normal. This is everyday life. It's not just this one little pocket of what is on TV or whatever that is your world. That hurt me as a kid. I grew up thinking that life was one way, and I grew up ignorant. I grew up not understanding my neighbors or my people. It's not cool. So when I realized that, I said, okay, well, I want to make comics. I want to draw Spider-Man and X-Men and all these things,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also slower than the average artist that does those things. So how am I going to build myself up to be at that level? Make my own books. And if I make my own books, I can start building my portfolio. I can start building my skill set. But do I want to do the stories that have already been done?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else does those stories. What is going to set me apart? What is going to set my story apart? You know what? Let's not even worry about that. Let's just do a story that we need. Fill that space that we don't have filled. And let's talk about Puerto Rican people, because West Side Story is the only one that if you could think about a Puerto Rican person, you're probably going to think about West Side Story. And what do you think about West Side Story? Gangs and Romeo and Juliet, and the families don't want each other together, and negative things. I want to bring something positive. When I deal with things, I want to smile. I want to be happy. I don't want to be sad. I don't want to deal with all this frustration because it's going to be there every day. So what do? I want to smile. I look at the silver lining in everything. And then it popped. A reason to smile. That's it. That's what you need to write your book about, a reason to smile. What's going to be your reason to smile every day? And then I thought about the fact that the kids that I was teaching, they don't have a lot of books about girls. Boom, make a book about a girl. I'm not a girl. I grew up with my sister. I grew up with my mother. I knew girls. I could try, right? That's the thing that we need to do more than anything else. We just need to try. Even if we don't succeed, we need to try. That's what's important to me. And then, of course, I wanted her to be Puerto Rican because there's no stories about Puerto Ricans. But in her being Puerto Rican, I wanted to showcase the positive elements of my people, of my family, of my friends, of the people that I know from the island. You know, what is the thing that people say about us in the positive realm? What is it that we say about ourselves in the positive realm? And I wanted to focus on finding the bright side out of everything. So that's where Louisa came to be.
Wow. Wow, and I love that you are approaching the topic of representation from that positive lens, because I know that within the space of artists who are trying to talk about social and political issues, there does tend to sometimes be a default to like, okay, well, we have these stories that come from struggle or immigration or pain, and therefore our stories have to be defined by that, by that trauma, by those harsh experiences. And I think that's very valid, and we definitely need those stories, but that doesn't have to be the limitation of the stories that we have, and it certainly isn't healthy to only have those types of stories, and we need to be able to have, like you said, a reason to smile.
That's right.
Now, staying on the topic of representation, we often talk about superheroes as people that we identify with, but there's also a lot to be said about a really good supervillain that you also identify with. So my question is sort of a two-part. One, what qualities do you like to see in supervillains, and perhaps pertaining to maybe the stories that you write, or maybe even in A Reason to Smile? And what supervillains throughout comic book history have you sort of been drawn to?
So I think that's an issue that as a writer for my series, I struggle with, because I have a 10-year-old character.
Mm-hmm.
She's not really going to have a villain,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I'm also learning that she can have an antagonist. She can have someone that's a pain in her butt. She
Yeah.
can have someone that is, tries to trip her up, someone that's just, a hater or a jealous person, or, somebody that wants to be like her and doesn't know how to express it.
Mm-hmm.
So those are things that I'm trying to understand. I also, from a Reason to Smile standpoint, I am trying to use the world as the villain,
Interesting.
because if I went to go to Trader Joe's, a couple of days ago, and I had to pick up some things, but they didn't have the thing that I needed, right? So I had to reach out to my lady to be like, yo, I don't know what to get you now because they don't have this particular thing. Are you okay with me getting something else? Do you just want that?
Mm-hmm.
But it was underground, so I couldn't reach out to her. So,
Mm.
this is not a major big deal. I'm not going to get hurt, and I'm not going to lose my life or nothing like that, or,
Mm-hmm.
lose a limb. But this is my problem. This
Mm-hmm.
is my, issue right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to, figure out how to deal with that. Those are the small things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now on the major scales, in volume 2, A lot of before Volume 2 came out, a lot of people were like, my kids are dealing with bullies. I don't see books about bullies.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see how a positive person deals with bullies.
Mm-hmm.
So I added that to the story. Yeah.
Wow.
So you'll see that in Volume 2. Um, in the spin-off of the series, Another Reason to Smile, um, the villain happens to be his mind,
Oh.
because he is reading all these wonderful comic books, but he starts to feel anxious, and his self-value starts to lower because his self-esteem is attacked because he thinks that he's not as cool as these fictional characters.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's his villain.
Wow.
That's his crux. So that's the crux of the story. So it's like, we all have our villains day to day. Whether it's, someone who cuts you off in the road and you're worried about them hitting your car and you got to spend thousands of dollars to fix your car, to somebody, being rude to you and cursing you out for no reason. There's a whole bunch of things that could be that. So that's what I try to address in A Reason to Smile, because I don't want nobody should be punched in the face in my stories. Nobody should be, kidnapped and ransomed off. That's too much for my stories.
Yeah.
But as you said, a good villain is good to see get punched in the face. we still need to see that, because it's good to get our frustrations out, and I get mine out through basketball. Some people get theirs out through their stories. So I guess I would say my favorite villains. Let's see. Me and my daughter just started watching Steven Universe, so the Diamonds are great villains in Steven Universe. Comic book wise, Loki, of course, always a pain in Thor's side. I always get brought back to one with Thor and Loki, back to Ragnarok. If you've ever read the series back in, I want to say, the early 2000s, maybe late 90s, the story of Ragnarok, the rebirth of Asgard and all that. Thor ended up getting Odin's power, the All Father's power. He became the All Father. And for some reason, he had cut off Loki's head, but Loki still had his consciousness. So he's talking. And Thor's walking around with Loki's head. He's holding his hair, and he's like walking around. He's like, "Yo, Thor, you need to do this, you knucklehead." He's like, "Yo, shut up." So that is a villain story that I always think of whenever I think of villains. X-Men, you've got Magneto, who was a great villain who ended up becoming one of their greatest protagonists with them. Like when he took over the school, became a villain again. He ended up getting his acolytes as a villain, but then he was trying to do something good. Seeing that he came out of like World War II and the Holocaust, how his personal struggle was a real struggle that would just put his mind in a different place than anybody's ever been in, with that power at the same time. Because we could all have our issues and go through what we go through, but if you had the power to do something about it, would you become a villain?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you watch Black Panther, Killmonger is another of those examples. He had his life, his father was taken from him, and then he became a villain because his life was taken from him, basically.
Yeah.
Nobody was there to give him support. Nobody was there to say, this is right, this is wrong. I got your back. He had to do it himself, and then it turned his mind. And he ended up being able to acquire power that then turned his mind more. You know what I mean? But like the villains that's just like Doc Ock.
Yeah.
I wanna use my brain to beat everybody because nobody appreciated my science. Well, then do something about that. You could have been a good guy. You didn't have to be a bad guy. You're a knucklehead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But somebody like Magneto who's like, yo, you killed my whole people. That's
complicates it. Yeah.
Yeah, makes it so much more than just a personal issue. And I think that's when it becomes where a villain becomes more worthy of being in that spotlight. Like Red Skull, I hate seeing people rock Red Skull t-shirts or hats. It's like, that dude is a genocidal maniac. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just wants to hurt people. Why are you supporting that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like someone like Magneto, he doesn't want to just hurt people. He wants to help people.
Yeah.
And in helping people, he hurts. which is wrong, of course,
Yeah.
but he's at least trying to do something right.
Yeah.
So it makes it, like you said, it's complicated. It's not just a simple story.
And I love that you're sort of elaborating on that complexity of um, even just the topic and category of villains themselves, but sort of moving on to the other side of, uh, or the rather the other half of the art of building up these comic book stories is illustration. Because as an illustrator, I mean, I see you like a creative martial artist who's mastered their craft after putting years and years of hard work into refining advanced techniques and honing your creative mind just time after time. I know I can't have you teach our audience how to instantly be better at illustration, but what mental health advice would you
Mm.
give to artists who feel stuck but they know they want to pursue a career as an illustrator or a visual artist?
You have to immerse yourself in your craft, whatever it is, whether you're a basketball player, whether you're a medic, whether you are whatever your background is, whatever it is you want to do every day, you have to do it every day. So, as an illustrator myself, I love DeviantArt for that reason. I was able to immerse myself, see other people's artwork. Right now, we got Instagram, which shows a plethora of art. You got Twitter with a whole bunch of other artists that don't show this up there, but they show it on Twitter. You got Facebook. You have so many venues. You got YouTube. You got TikTok. You just have to find your lane. How they say, stay in your lane. You, if you don't know what your lane is, you got to find it. You know what I mean? So, and the way to find it is to search it, to constantly be whatever free moments you have. That's what you should be doing. You should be looking at these different programs. You should be searching out different hashtags. You should be saying, okay, well, like I'm a part of a group, the Real Drink and Draw in New York. Kari Randolph ended up getting it from the guys out in California. He brought it over to New York, and we have a drink. And sadly, I missed it this week, but it's a organization that allows you to have live models, and you can go there and draw every month, the second Tuesday of every month. And whenever I have an issue of anatomy, I ask the model to pose in a specific way, or I focus on that specific part of their body, and I say, okay, well, I'm having issues with knees. I'm going to draw knees today. Or
Hmm.
I have an issue with how the neck connects to the lats. I'm going to draw that from different angles. Stuff like that. You have to know, okay, this is where I'm deficient, and this is what I'm going to do to not be deficient in that way anymore. You also have to find role models. You have to find people that you aspire to be like. I just realized today, of all days, and I've been feeling this, but didn't realize this is what I was feeling. But I realized that in making a reason to smile, I've always wanted it to be an animated series. I want to reach out to the people who animated Steven Universe Future. I think the way that they animate is the perfect way that a reason to smile would be represented. They are, you know, if I could get collaborate with Rebecca Sugar, that would be amazing, because she writes amazing, or they write. I'm not sure what her pronoun is, their pronoun. Apologies, but I don't know the way that Rebecca Sugar writes is such an amazing way to touch the heart and to be able to connect with people. So as a writer myself, Rebecca Sugar is who I aspire to.
Hmm.
The people who made Rebecca Sugar's show, Steven Universe Future, that's who I aspire to. So I'm paying attention. I'm studying. How did they draw the eyes here? How did the eyes look when they turned to the side? How did they look to the other side when they went down, when they went up? I'm trying to analyze all these different things. So, in whatever it is you want to do, whether you want to be a painter, a sculptor, a background artist, an inker, whatever your passion is for the arts, you have to find whoever it is that does what you want to do, or who does it the best way that you see it, and say, okay, I got to find a way to either emulate or learn from what they do to do my own thing. J.G. Jones, who's an illustrator for DC, amazing painter, amazing illustrator. He did the Wanted graphic novel before it became a movie.
Hmm.
I was at a panel that he was at, and somebody asked him about style. And he said, style is how your mind perceives reality.
Wow.
Blew my mind.
Whoa.
Blew my mind.
Wow.
Because it was like, thinking about it, it's like, if you and I both draw an eyeball, if we look at it, right, and we study it, we draw an eyeball, you are not going to draw the same eye I draw. Even if it has the same, curves at the top and the same straight line on the bottom, and it has the same highlights, the way you draw your highlight is going to be different than the way I draw my highlight. Mine might be more curvilinear. Yours might be more angular. You might allow for more space for the highlight. I might only keep it a little bit, but that's because of our perception and our desire to express, right? So don't worry about style. Don't worry trying to be manga style. Don't worry about trying to be American style. Don't worry about, copying this person or that person. Draw things for real. Draw what a chair looks like. Draw what a table looks like. Draw what they look like together. Because separately they look like one thing. Together they make different shapes. The positive and negative shapes make a difference. So the way you decide to put that together, that is your style. Love it. Be happy with it. Know that that's you. That's nobody else. And that's the thing that like people they don't see. I want to be like this person. I want to be like that person. I want to draw in this style. And I want to have an original style. You are the original style. Whatever you do, that's an original style. I can't do it. Veneer can't do it. Todd McFarlane can't do it. Todd McFarlane does Todd McFarlane. You do you. And that for me is what leads my life as an artist. I don't try to be nobody else. I try to be the best that I can do for me.
I mean, my head's still blown from that style quote. But I mean, that's super super impactful because I know as for my own creative journey, trying to figure out what's my style, what's my thing. I mean, it's something that you worry about so much, and then later on you realize that everything that I do is me, and I don't have to worry about trying to like find me. I already am. I just need to start producing. I just need to start.
Yeah.
And next I want to talk about something tied closely to the world that Louise is in, which is gentrification. Louisa's home is in the city, which means that gentrification could impact her family and community. So my question is...
You're going into stories that I'm going to be writing later.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
so my question is, how did you, without spoiling anything, how did you approach that topic, gentrification, in A Reason to Smile, and how should parents talk about real gentrification to the kids?
So I haven't yet done that. In writing the next volume that's going to happen with Louisa's centered story, it's going to focus on her and her friends going to the park, trying to play a game, using their creative minds to then play that game, and then having some people from her new neighborhood come and be a part of that and how that impacts the story. I was struggling with trying to figure out how that could be a big deal and why it's something that people would want to read. And I realized that gentrification is the reason. Because she's from the Lower East Side. Lower East Side has always been a very poor neighborhood. It's become gentrified. A lot of the shops that I grew up with are not there anymore. The panaderia that was on 8th Street and Avenue C is no longer there. It's now a restaurant. It becomes like one restaurant, then it goes out of business, then it becomes another restaurant, goes out of business. And we don't have our cultural food there anymore. One spot remains, and thank God that remains, and that's oh my God, I'm blanking on the name now. Adela's. Adela's on 5th Street and Avenue C. Puerto Rican food, Puerto Rican woman that created the spot. She passed away sadly, but her family's still running the spot. But it's been there since I was a kid. And I'm very thankful that that's still there. Mm-hmm. But a lot of what I grew up with is gone. So I do want to address that in the stories. And I'm thankful that one day that ended up being able to, in trying to, write my outlines and trying to write every day, I finally realized that was the thing that needed to be discussed. I will address that in the way that I address everything, and that's just exposure. My daughter is 4 years old, and she'll come home and say, "Daddy, I can't wear that because that's for boys," or "I can't do that because that's for boys." At 4 years old. Because somebody at school is telling her that, whether it's another boy, whether it's another girl, whether it's her teachers. Somebody is telling her that there's a limit to how things can be done or should be done because of their gender. And I tell her, no, you can do what you want. As long as you're not hurting nobody, you do it. Her aunt, her godmother, is a lesbian. She married another woman. She has a wife. I have a wife that's a woman and I'm a male. How do you address homosexuality with kids? You tell them she loves her, she married her. I love her, I married her. She loves me, she married me. It's as simple as that. People make it too complex. When you are worried about how your kids are going to perceive these things, it's because you have the issue, not because your kids have the issue. And I'm going to tell you that to your face. You have the issue. And that's the thing where we have to step outside of ourselves and say, what is best for the kid? Are we going to continue to be the Stepford wives and just do things to make other people happy? Are we going to worry about other people's views of our family? Oh, what are they going to say? What are they going to say about us? Fuck out of here. That's not my concern. My concern is raising you and making you okay. If they want to do that over there, they do that over there. But I'm making you the best person you can be. And that's through exposure. My daughter can read. We walked by a school the other day and I had the word high school on the bottom. And we're talking. She looked over. She goes, high school. What? Where'd you get that from, baby? Oh, it's on the sign. Oh, you saw that on the sign? Yeah, I saw that. And I was like, why did you say that? I don't know. I just saw it and I felt like I knew what it was, so I said it. Because she's exposed to reading. She's exposed to writing. She's exposed to Steven Universe. She's exposed to Sesame Street. You know what I mean? Like, she is going to be better than me because I'm giving her all the things I didn't get. You know what I mean? So you want to talk about gentrification? What is the real thing about gentrification? Do people just come in and buy a shop and then, you know, does it not impact the community? What happens when that happens? There's a woman that I met that her kid was going to the same daycare that my kid was going to. And she had an apartment in a really expensive part of the area that had just been gentrified and brought up. And she's like, I think gentrification is okay because, you know, it brings more stuff into the neighborhood. And I had to tell her, look, it brings more stuff into the neighborhood for you. It doesn't bring more stuff into the neighborhood for me. I've lived there for 30 years. And when all these expensive things come in, my quality of life changes. I can no longer spend a small amount of money to get something. I have to now dig in my pockets, dig into my cushions, dig into my savings to get things that I should have been able to pay for at a meager price. There's no reason for that. That doesn't help us. It only helps the people that are getting paid. It only helps the greedy people. Oh, well, you know, if more things are there, then there's more chances to get more different things. I said, yeah, if they had different prices, sure. But that's not what happens. It's not, there's no equity there. It's all a flat level. It's a plateau of money that we have to now climb up to reach that we can't climb up. That idea of building yourself up by your bootstraps, you can't build yourself up by your bootstraps if you have no bootstraps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you have no bootstraps, how are you going to do it? So the idea is I can't bring myself up if the money to then build myself is not there, if my school is not there, if my food is not there, if my living conditions are not there. You can't come in and build the area up for people who have money, and then the people that don't have money don't have a way to build up too. If you're going to build up the things that are expensive, you got to build up the schools. You got to build up the food areas. Like my supermarket down the block for generations was expensive in a poor neighborhood. You want to eat healthy, right? You want to get almond milk. What do you think about the price of almond milk? You tell me, Rainier. What do you think about the price of almond milk?
What is it?
What should it be?
What is it? $6? $4? I have no idea.
Okay, so if you go to Trader Joe's,
Mm-hmm.
it's $2.99 for a quart.
Okay. Oh, okay. Shit.
Trader Joe's, right?
Uh-huh.
They were selling it for $4.99,
Yeah.
double the price.
Wow.
So now, trying to eat healthy, I have to dig in my pockets more. trying to be healthy so my body is healthy, so my body is capable of doing the things. So my mind is healthy, so my mind is capable of doing the things. I got to spend more money.
Yeah.
So, and that was before gentrification. My own neighborhood. That's why you ever heard of food deserts?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No
That's
fresh
what a
produce.
food. So that's basically what a food desert is, where you don't have quality food.
Yeah.
So you have to then find food wherever else you find it. You go to McDonald's for a value meal. You go to Taco Bell for a value meal when you should be getting value from your fruits and vegetables and your starches and your sugars and all those things. Instead of getting processed sugar, you should get refined, unrefined sugar, things along those lines. I might be wrong in that, but anyway, uh, it's more about just getting the healthy things, the healthy options. And if those healthy options are only expensive, you got to choose between your food and your bills.
Mm-hmm.
You got to choose whether you're going to keep the lights on or whether you're going to be feeling, your body is going to feel healthy or sick. It's terrible. So you got to think about the reality of the thing and not think about yourself. That's what it boils down to. How does this affect other people that don't have? Because you can take care of you. Some people cannot. And that's why we need government. That's why we need them to step in. That's why there are social services. That's why this could be a conversation I have forever. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, I think it's really important. I'm glad that you're talking about it from that perspective of, it doesn't. It's the difficulty isn't in trying to explain it. The difficulty is in that individual processing their own feelings and why they can't articulate something that is actually very straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
It's very straightforward that if people are being priced out of their basic necessities, then they can't live there, and that you then have to sort of look at it from the systemic perspective of why is this a strategy to deprive these people who have already been living here of their basic necessities, and sort of.
Real quick,
Mhm.
with that brings up another idea of the person that says, "Well, I did it. Why
Yeah.
can't you?"
Mm-hmm.
I hate that, and
Yeah.
the reason why I hate it is because I am not you. My mind doesn't work the same way yours does. That person's mind doesn't work the same way this person's mind does. So you cannot expect these people, those people, that person, this person to think the way you do. It's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there are different options for different things, because different people think differently. So, what is the common denominator? What is the thing that is necessary the most? That's what we should be thinking. As an American people, as the United States of America, we're supposed to be this great country that takes care of people. How do we take care of people? It's not a handout. It's about how do you allow people to have the greatest measure of success? How can they be successful on their own? What can you do to help someone step out of their own shoes? You want to
Mm-hmm.
be Christian? Jesus helped people do for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do for people and then that was it. He provided a means for you to then say, you can go ahead and do this on your own now.
Yeah.
You need to take care of other people, however they need to be taken care of. Step outside of yourself. Stop being greedy. Stop being selfish. Stop being you and be somebody else. What do they need?
Exactly. No, and I'm glad that you brought that up. And sort of going into these issues of how a city changes and how people change. My last question is something that I hope will sort of turn this interview into a piece of art history. But what are some of your wildest or most creative, but also potentially possible ideas when it comes to the future of Louisa or A Reason to Smile? Are there any kinds of stories that like you just thought about, like, oh, I'd love to, take her to Saturn or whatever? Like, what ideas have sort of floated in your head that haven't been announced?
Boy, I can go on for days with this. So what was great about creating Louisa and creating A Reason to Smile was trying to figure out who she was first. That's, I think, the biggest thing that people don't do is they don't do enough to realize the lengths to which their character can go. So I think that's the thing that I did the most, because I think the most successful shows are the ones where they know their character. They would do this, they would not do that, that type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So I want her to visit all of New York. I want her to expose the world to the beauties of New York. I want her to visit Puerto Rico. I want her to expose the beauties of Puerto Rico, the struggles, the beauties, all of it. I want people to be able to see that in her stories. I want her to be able to be a kid at the same time, celebrate the idea of imagination, celebrate the idea of, what kids go through and what can build them up, because if we have stories that help to reinforce the best parts of our foundations for our kids, I think we would all be better people. So a reason to smile is basically about, trying to be the best you could be, finding the best part of the world that you live in and finding that smile. So, she's going to have her moments where she's going to be a brat and she's not going to want to do what her parents say. And then, she's going to get in trouble for that. And there's going to be stories about that. I already have one that I want to bring to the Board of Ed and try to get them to fund it. Um, there's stories where she is going to be imaginative, like you brought up her fighting the chupacabra.
Mm-hmm.
I had a kid that I read at a school, and he tells me he's a big kid, probably about like 4 feet tall, fourth grader, husky. He came from the reading, and he comes up to me. He says, "You know, I really like your stories, and I like your artwork, but do you do any action?" And I said, "Wow, this boy wants more from this girl character about doing something more impactful physically."
Hmm.
Cool, cool. Like he was brave enough to come and tell me that. I thought that was really cool. So like those are things that I want to address as well. Like what can we do to have fun as a kid? What action do kids do? I'm 43 years old, so I'm far removed from that, but I see it in my classes. So I was like, okay, let's try to put that into the mix. Um, so there's a lot that if you think about your smile, what brings you your smile inside your house, outside your house, at your job, at your family functions, these are things that are all going to be addressed in the stories. Lastly, like I said, another reason the smile is coming out. I'm going to be centering the stories around her friends because they're not just background characters. They're not just supporting characters. They have lives and they have their own experiences. So I'm going to be sharing that. Um, but I'm also writing a novel. I originally thought I wanted it to be 75,000 words like Harry Potter and be like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. But I'm at the point now where I'm just, because of my job, because of my family life, I'm just super busy and I can't, like, no one is paying me to do a reason to smile yet. So I can't just do those stories all the time. So I've gotten to the point where I think the first major arc of that book can be told and can be shared. So I think I'm going to just like design the cover, get that ready for consumption. Excuse me. It's about 30,000 words. So it's a nice meaty story. And I think I'm going to release that earlier next year. Um, but that's so I've realized that as a publisher I can do some things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have a board book called A Reason to Smile, Making Friends, and that's gonna be more of the children's books now. That's gonna be just like the big pictures, simple sentences, simple stories, but impactful in like how they present themselves. Like Making Friends is basically about like getting out the house, going to the park, and now you have an opportunity to make friends. Teaches kids to be social, teaches kids to step outside of themselves and to be brave. Um, Somebody asked me a question on Twitter about what the problem that she might have to encounter be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was she anxious? Was she nervous going to the park? And when I finally reproduced the book, because right now it's a limited edition board book at 500 copies, and there's only like 65 copies left.
Mm-hmm.
So once those sell out, I'm gonna republish the book similar to how volume 1 and 2 are in a larger 8.5 by 8.5 square format, and then I'll add some pages there that will then address that. But the children's there's going to be children's books where she's 5. There's going to be traditional floppy comic books that turn into graphic novels that'll be her in her outside of school life, with her friends and with on her own. And then there's going to be the novels that will be her school life.
Wow.
What does she go through at school? What does she go through with her family? Um, More of the stories that need a meatier situation. They're not going to be addressed in like a couple panels or a couple pages or whatnot. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's gonna also scratch my creative itch of being able to create these big broad pictures, these panels for storytelling, and then just writing. Um, and in the floppies, a big part of volume of the next set of comics that have come out after Another Reason to Smile, when they go to the park, they're not just going to go to the park and play kick the can. They're going to pretend that there's specific superheroes that they're going to create on the spot, that their superpowers are going to help them play kick the can. So
Wow.
like the idea that Captain Marvel says Shazam and he turns into Captain Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
but he physically does that,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to use their imaginations to do this.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's gonna go in and out because we all did that as kids.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm Batman. Oh, I'm Spider Man. Oh, I'm this. I'm that. They're gonna create their own characters, and they're gonna have like characters that they're gonna relate to, like because in Another Reason to Smile Volume One, the comics that he's reading are actual independent books that are out there that you can buy. So I spoke to the creators. They sent me the covers. They sent me a couple pages. You can read that in the deluxe edition, but in the smaller edition, you could just see their covers and know where to buy them. So when they turn into the superheroes that they're going to turn into, either they could say, "Oh, I want to be like Isnana," or "I want to be like La Borinqueña," or "I want to be like the controller." Um, they can also make up their own characters and be like, "Oh, I'm making up this character, and he could do this, and he could do that, and it's going to help me fly past you because I'm super fast." Stuff like that. I'm going to have that in the story. So that's going to be another element that's going to add to some of that fun. Because like her fighting the chupacabra, she ain't never going to fight a chupacabra. Neither are you. Neither am I. But there's going to be, I've already written the outline for the story where she does fight the chupacabra and why that is part of her experience as a Puerto Rican.
Well, I am thoroughly like intrigued by you sort of expanding the universe of what this could be. Javier, I appreciate you so much for coming onto the show. It's been awesome getting to know you, and Louisa and Reason to Smile. We'd love to have you back on LAG Radio again. But before we head out, what are you working on these days, and where can the LAG community find and support you?
So I have 3 Kickstarters for A Reason to Smile Volume 1, Volume 2, and then Making Friends. So you can find me if you look up Javier Cruz Winnik on or A Reason to Smile on Kickstarter. You can see all of those campaigns. My personal website is The Curve, thecurv.com. You can see everything that I've done that I am proud of. It's on that site. I'm on Instagram under The Learning Curve. With no E at the end, TheLearningCurv. On Twitter, somebody took that name. I'm upset, but I'm okay. So I put THA, so The Learning Curve. I'm personally trying to figure out which printer I'm going to print at. So that way I can print Another Reason to Smile because it's going to be a smaller book and then a regular size comic book. So I need to make sure that the printing is on point. I've gone with Ingram for volume 1 and 2. I would have went with them for the board book, but they don't do board books. And then it looks like they don't have Saddle Stitch anymore, so I can't use that for a comic book. So I got to find a different printer. But the Ingram printing is really good. Like anytime people pick it up, they're impressed. They're like, "Oh wow, this feels like a book I buy in the store." And I'm like, that's the point. That's the point. So like I'm trying to be like a straight up, big time publisher with what I do, and I'm also trying to print in America. I'm big on like, if we're gonna take care of home, we gotta take care of home. So you can help out everybody else. That's great, but also help out home. So my books are made here. I'm trying to find printers here. Um, so that's the journey that I'm doing with Another Reason to Smile. I'm doing character sheets for um, the Reason to Smile novel. It's called A Reason to Smile, Hello New Kid. Um, and on the cover is going to be a lot of her classmates from
Mm-hmm.
the new school that she's at. So I have to design them, make sure that they're ready for like another story. I'm also going to do like spot illustrations inside the book. So like, like when you was reading books as a kid, like you turn to it, it's just like, oh, that's what they look like. Oh, okay, cool. So I'm doing that. And then I've got outlines for days about like the next set of books. I've got like at least 5 arcs that if someone paid me, I'd be starting on. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Um, I love Bluey. If you've ever watched Bluey, it's on Disney, but it's basically about a dog family,
Mm-hmm.
basically like a dog world. Um, and then like the two kids are dogs. The girls, they are. The story is just like always about like how parents and kids interact.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's if I'm not mistaken, it has a connection to the Australian government. I think they help produce it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I'm gonna
Interesting.
look into how that happens, and I want to see if I could talk to New York, and then maybe the United States government, see what kind of grants can be done to put that into effect. Because again, I'm gonna find out the company that does the Steven Universe Future cartoon. I'm gonna try to find a way to pay those people, because that's the other thing that I feel like too. Like as a creator, I want to be paid.
Yeah.
So I look at other creators and I'm like, I would love to pay that creator, pay another artist, help another artist eat by doing something for me. Because like if you look at my hardcovers, I have a short story. I have the soft covers that have just the story,
Mm-hmm.
and then the hardcovers have the behind the scenes, artwork, information, a short story, and to accompany the short story is art from other artists. So
Hmm.
I asked them, "What's your rate? What do you want to get paid? I pay you. I want you to do the work." And they tell me their rate, and I pay them. Because I feel like artists deserve the money that they want.
Yeah.
Whatever they need for their bills, whatever they deserve, whatever they think their art is worth, it needs to be paid, because nobody should have to die to see their artwork be worth $1 million. I think that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
People need to be paid right now. They need to be paid while they're living and creating and they're doing the work. So I want to be one of those people that does that. So I'm gonna pay you guys if you do work for me, if I could pay you.
Well, what we'll do is we'll definitely drop out the links over here so people can go ahead and either purchase A Reason to Smile, follow the journey, follow this story unfolding. Again, thanks, Javier, so much for coming on. And thanks, everybody, for watching. See ya.